You're at a networking event, a coffee shop, or a social gathering. Someone walks up to you, smiles warmly, and introduces themselves. "Hi, I'm Sigma." You look them in the eye, shake their hand, and say it's great to meet them. But 2 seconds later, as the conversation continues, you realize something terrifying. Their name is completely, surgically wiped from your memory. You remember the color of their shirt, you remember the emotion in their voice, and you remember their face, but the word, Sigma, has completely vanished. Most people assume this means they are rude, careless, or suffering from a bad memory. But cognitive psychology and neuroscience reveal something completely different. Forgetting names easily isn't a sign of mental laziness. It is a direct byproduct of a highly sophisticated, hyper-efficient brain architecture that actively chooses depth over arbitrary details. Welcome back to Sigma Intelligence. Today, we are exploring the silent, complex mechanics of the human brain to decode the psychology of people who forget names easily. If you are someone who constantly struggles with names but can remember a face, a vibe, or a conversation from 5 years ago with perfect clarity, this video will change how you see your own mind. We are breaking down the neural trade-off between labels and essence, the next-in-line performance trap, and what your selective memory says about how you process reality. To understand why a name like Sigma disappears so quickly, we have to look at how human memory encodes data. In cognitive psychology, this is rooted in what researchers call the nominal encoding deficit. The human brain is a semantic engine. It craves meaning, context, and visual associations. Unfortunately, human names are entirely arbitrary. Think about it this way. If I tell you that a man works as a baker, your brain immediately lights up with associated data. You picture an oven, white flour, the scent of fresh bread, and an apron. The word baker is tethered to an entire network of pre-existing knowledge. But if I tell you that the man's name is Mr. Baker, that word loses all its semantic power. It becomes a blank, isolated label with no intrinsic meaning. It has no physical properties, no texture, and no evolutionary significance. When you meet someone new, your brain is forced to process an overwhelming wave of data all at once. According to researchers McQueenie and Ellis, your working memory faces a stark choice. It can dedicate its limited bandwidth to storing an arbitrary text string, the name, or it can prioritize survival-critical information. For many analytical or highly sensitive minds, the brain instinctively chooses the latter. It maps the person's facial geometry, reads their microexpressions, gauges their emotional stability, and assesses whether this person is trustworthy or threatening. Your brain isn't failing to pay attention. It is paying attention to something infinitely deeper than a label. You don't forget the person. You simply forget what they are called because your mind was entirely absorbed in discovering who they actually are. The second psychological hurdle occurs the very second the introduction takes place. It is a well-documented cognitive phenomenon known as the next-in-line effect, first coined by researcher Malcolm Brenner. Imagine standing in a circle where people are introducing themselves one by one. As the line moves closer to you, your internal focus radically shifts. Your brain stops recording external data because it is entirely occupied with preparing its own performance. You are thinking about your posture, your handshake, how you will introduce yourself, and how your voice will sound. Because your internal monologue is running at maximum volume, your brain's working memory buffer is completely full. When the person right before you says, "Hi, my name is Sigma," the sound waves enter your ear, but they never get processed by your prefrontal cortex. The data is never written into your short-term memory storage because you are mentally next in line. This gets magnified exponentially if you experience even a minor amount of social anxiety. When a person feels self-conscious, their brain interprets the social interaction as a high-stakes performance. Cortisol and adrenaline spike slightly, which immediately impairs the hippocampus, the brain's primary engine for memory formation. Under social pressure, your mind enters a subtle version of the fight-or-flight response. And in survival mode, your brain filters out low-priority data like names to keep you alert to social cues and feedback. The fusiform face area and the deficit. To understand why you can remember a face for decades but lose a name in seconds, we need to look at the brain's physical geography. Human beings possess a specialized neural network in the temporal lobe called the fusiform face area, or FFA. This area has spent millions of years evolving to recognize faces, read expressions, and identify individuals instantly from a distance. It runs entirely on autopilot. Names, however, are processed in completely different, non-specialized language centers. When you see a face, the FFA recognizes it instantly, but to find the name, your brain has to send a signal across a narrow, fragile neural bridge to access your mental Rolodex. If that bridge isn't reinforced with heavy associative data, the connection fails. Pattern interrupt. Think of someone whose face you remember perfectly. Someone you haven't seen in a very long time. Picture their eyes, their smile, the way they carry themselves. Now, try to recall their name. If the name didn't appear immediately, if you felt a distinct, agonizing lag while staring right at their face in your mind's eye, you've just experienced the exact neural gap we've been discussing. Your visual cortex is running at lightning speed, while your linguistic brain is stuck searching the archives. Actionable mental models to override the deficit. While understanding the psychology behind this habit can relieve the guilt, forgetting someone's name can still feel incredibly embarrassing. If you want to train your brain to stop deleting names, you have to consciously build the semantic bridges your mind naturally skips. First, use the repetition loop. The moment someone introduces themselves, say their name back to them within 3 seconds. Great to meet you, Sigma. This forces the audio data straight into your active working memory. Second, apply visual anchor stacking. Take the arbitrary name and anchor it to a vivid visual image. If their name is Sigma, mentally picture a massive, glowing mathematical sigma symbol stamped directly onto their forehead. The weirder the visual image, the easier it is for your visual cortex to anchor the word. The human mind is a master class in selective allocation. It refuses to spend energy on isolated data points when it can spend that same energy capturing the deeper truth of a human connection. You are not forgetful. Your mind is simply prioritizing substance over a label. If you found this cognitive breakdown valuable, hit the like button and subscribe to Sigma Intelligence. Drop a comment below. Did the name appear during our pause, or did you experience the neural gap? Let's analyze it together. We will see you in the next video.